tuned into the hottest paranormal life show on YouTube, Into the Fringe, where we discuss lost civilizations, UFOs, cryptids, unsolved mysteries, megalithic structures, extraterrestrials, interdimensional portals, time skips, and more. Don't change that channel, because now you are leaving the mainstream and entering into the fringe.
Greetings, Cardinal Sin Nation. It is I, Cardinal Sin. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Walter Bosley. Walter Bosley is an investigator of historical occult mysteries, author of pulp fiction novels, a screenwriter, and has appeared on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens. After 19 months in national security, Walter Bosley is a licensed private investigator in California, where he also runs his small press publishing company, Lost Continent Library, founded in 2002. Bosley has traveled much of the world both on the job and off, including trips through Mexico and South America with David Hatcher Childress. Walter was born in San Diego, California, and attended San Diego State University, where he earned a BA in journalism. He was employed by the FBI and is an inactive reserve officer in the U.S. Air Force, for which he served as a special agent of the AFOSI while on active duty, and then worked as a counterterrorism operational consultant for 6 years following military service. Bosley spends his time writing fiction and nonfiction, as well as investigating strange mysteries in between PI assignments. The latest news about Bosley's projects can be found at empireofthewheel.blogspot.com and lostcontinentlibrary.blogspot.com. Welcome, my friend Walter Bosley, back to Into the Fringe.
Hey, it's great to be here. Although I just have one correction to make.
Yes.
That's years, not months.
I'm sorry. I was reading ahead and got lost.
No big deal. They know me.
It wouldn't be an episode of Into the Fringe if I didn't fuck something up pretty early on. And just to let folks know, I've got some kind of a browser, computer, camera issue going on, and they're not coming to fix it until tomorrow. So what I'm going to do, Walter, is I'm just going to keep you big, and I'll kind of be over here off to the side most of the time.
Okay.
And that's probably the way we should do it anyway, but just so that folks know, I'm going to kind of mind the store along with the mods in the chat. And I understand that our giveaway tonight is a very special one. Would you like to set that up for us?
Yes. I started publishing Secherie, 17 years ago. That's how long we've known each other and been friends. And the first books of his that I published were of a trilogy, the Wonder of the Worlds trilogy, and it was a science fiction adventure kind of thing with Nikola Tesla and Harry Houdini at the center of the action, and it spans from 1893 to the year that Amelia Earhart disappeared in the late 30s, or 40s, before World War II. And I am re-releasing those books. He wants to have those books out there again. He kind of pulled his stuff back for a while. And as you know, I re-released his first fiction book, Handprint of Atlas, almost a year ago, and that's been real popular. So now we're re-releasing the trilogy. The first book is going to be the first hardcover released on my label. In this October will be the 20th anniversary of my publishing company, by the way.
Mazel tov, Walter.
Yes,
that's wonderful.
You. And so, I'm going to do a lot of cool things to kind of celebrate that. And one of the first things is the first book in that trilogy, titled Wonder of the Worlds, will be the first hardcover from my company's label. And that's the one that takes place in 1893, where Nikola Tesla, a very young Harry Houdini, and Mark Twain have to journey to Mars in a Nikola Tesla spaceship. And in the book we're giving away tonight, it's years later. It's 1915. Houdini is now the great Harry Houdini, and Martian agents have come to Earth working with the very shadowy masterminds of a group called NIMSA, which you've heard me talk about and write about. And it's quite a big chunk of the saga. It's, I think, 400 and some pages, something like that. And wow. It's science fiction, it's adventure, but it also has some very dark commentary on the world we find ourselves in today and how that dates back, over 100 years, but told, in this really fascinating fantasy adventure story. And that's one thing I want to say about Sechery's fiction. Like my own, his fiction is truly a reflection of his nonfiction research. So when you read a Sechery novel, you're reading stuff that he thinks was really happened or could very possibly really happen. It's not just another little fun thing to read and you toss it away and forget about it. No, his fiction is as important to have as his nonfiction. So we're giving away a copy of Metamorphosis, which I just re-released 2 days ago. And, if you give it a try, and if the winner, checks it out, reads the book, I think you'll be convinced that the Sechery fiction is something special. So
that sounds fantastic.
It is. It really is. An amazing,
a little bit of John Carter of Mars.
A little bit, yeah. It, my gosh, it's an amazing saga, and we both really want to get it out there again. It deserves to
live again.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's alive.
That's tonight's giveaway.
Cool. And speaking of it's alive, we have our Tiki pour-up contest to do, and you have Captain James T. Kirk.
Yep. I thought I'd switch it up a little bit tonight, and Kirk doesn't get much attention on my my Tiki exposure, so.
And you can't see mine, but it's the Gorn, which is my personal favorite. And I'm drinking a CBD lemon sparkling black tea.
Nice.
Along with a grapefruit sparkling coconut water.
Ah, nice. Well, I'm having a bubbly bounce. It's caffeinated sparkling water, and this is the citrus cherry flavor. And good, safe drink for me. And there we go, popping it open. There we are, doing the pour.
This is our traditional pour-up. Got my first half in there.
Yeah, my second round will be a La Croix. Walter, your French is better than that. Hibiscus seltzer.
Ooh, fancy.
I gotta be honest with you. These flavored waters, to me, I can smell a difference between them. They all have a nice, fragrance or scent or whatever to them, but they all taste. They're not bad, but they just simply all taste the same to me. I like them, but I don't really. Not much flavor in there, actually, but.
Well, l'chaim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That's quite
very
tasty.
Refreshing.
Tasty.
So.
I feel refreshed already.
Indeed.
It's a fine time for a lemon fresh black tea.
I have some another little bit of exciting publishing news I wanted to
Yes,
mention.
please.
I just recently signed with our friend Dr. Joseph Farrell. I will be publishing his first 3 books under my label: the Giza Death Star, the Giza Death Star Deployed, and the Giza Death Star Destroyed. If you have never read those books and you're a fan of Dr. Farrell, I strongly recommend, highly recommend, that as soon as I get these out there available on the market at lulu.com, that you get a copy, because these are essential books to have in Joseph's catalog, and really the good place to start. Those 3 books and the Cosmic War, and I don't want to say too much, but he might be working on the follow-up to the Giza Death Star trilogy. So there might be kind of a updating of that research. I don't know for sure, but a little birdie has told me. So that makes these books even more essential to get, and I will be releasing them pretty soon here under my own label with new covers, and we're both kind of excited to get these new editions out there.
Yeah, that's really cool. You did, of course, undercut my first question, but that's okay.
What was that?
I was going to ask you, I understand you have some new books that you're going to be publishing, but
sorry about that.
That's okay. If that's the worst thing that happens, we'll be in good shape. And of course, I am a big fan of Joseph Farrell. I've been trying to get him on the show for over a year now.
Well, you guys are communicating now, at least, right?
Yeah,
I think. So
we have been.
Yeah, you'll land on a date there.
Yeah. So
I'll work it from my end now that I'm publishing 3 of his essential titles. I'll say, hey, I need you on Into the Fringe to
help promote. Yeah, that'd be great. So the 20th anniversary of Lost Continent Library is coming up in October.
Yes.
Are we going to have a party?
I'm definitely. I already talked to my local one of my local bakery places here, and I'm definitely having. I'm ordering a big sheet cake that's going to be a replica of the company logo, that black rectangle with the red letters that say Lost Continent Library in the stylized old pulp magazine font. And so I think that's really, that's I got to get that, and I figured the logo's the best thing to do that with. And yeah, I'm going to have a little celebration here at home. And I really look at, you could argue that I'm in the 20th year of operations, but I decided that, I want to kick off a year of celebration, starting with the 20th birthday, which will be the first week of October. And I'll be doing all sorts of little things. So yes, I'm going to have a little actual birthday celebration on the day, but I'll be talking about the anniversary for a whole year, to the point where people get tired of hearing about it.
We'll get sick of it, right?
Hopefully they won't get sick of it. Hopefully it will inspire them to check out the whole catalog, because I would like to, I don't know if it's a crusade, but more people got to get back to reading fiction.
I agree.
You need an escape from all this nonfiction, all this, the conspiracy theory and all the this, that, or the other. And, more people just need to have fun with, let themselves read the fiction. Because as I said about Secheri's work, my fiction, now my pulp novels are a little different, but they're still my nonfiction interests and research that will pop up in the pulp novels. But in my more serious novels, like the time travel book, there's chunks of my nonfiction research and my ideas in there and stuff. So, the way I see it is, particularly people in the ufology community, you're already getting, a whole bunch of fiction thrown
That's
at
right.
you, but they're telling you it's true.
Yeah.
I'm more honest. Check out my fiction because there's some truth in it.
Or maybe we could just say you're straight up honest as opposed to a bullshit artist.
Yeah, right.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be one of my campaign for the next year, since my company started out as a fiction publishing company, and I haven't stopped. But yeah, I would like to see more people starting to. Fiction has kind of, as far as published fiction, has kind of taken a hit, I think. People, thanks to the internet, it's a blessing and a curse, as we know. We wouldn't be here doing what we do if it weren't for the internet. But on the other hand, the internet
hold.
Yeah.
I don't want you to step over another one of my questions here.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I'm way ahead of you.
Okay.
I'm way ahead of you. But we'll get there. I do want to ask, what is the lost continent, or is it that it's lost that's the point?
Oh, well, I flat out was called it Lost Continent Library. Oh, wow. Look what's sitting on my thing right here. This was the very first business cards that I had made up when I started the company. And the one after this is even cooler. I'll have to, but that was sitting right there. And when I came up, originally the whole thing was going to be just a magazine. I think we talked about that like last year on the show when you were having me talk about my publishing company. And then, of course, I decided, I was in Khartoum, Sudan, by the way, in Northeast Africa on my job when I came up with the idea. And originally it was going to be a magazine. And by the time I left that month-long mission
format
there, yeah, I decided to just make it a publishing company. I eventually got to the magazine, if you recall, and I'd like to return to the magazine, but or include it again in what I do. So I thought, well, what's a great name for my company? And I thought of, with a nod to the Library of Alexandria, with all that lost knowledge and such, and a nod to Atlantis, I just decided, oh, okay, Atlantis is the lost continent. And I thought, lost continent, library. It was really that simple. And from there, I figured, oh, the company colors should be red and black because those were the colors of Atlantis. So that's why the main logo. Now, I've done the logo in other combinations. The black rectangle, the primary one is the red letters in that font. But I've done the letters in gold, green, orange, you name it, blue. So that's where that comes from. It's just a reference to Atlantis.
And I understand that there are going to be all kinds of tchotchkes, keychains.
I'm going to make that stuff available. Yep. I now bookmarks. Funny thing, sitting right here. I'm just like always prepared, right? Here's a box that I had made, a box of bookmarks that I had made. I want to say at least 15 or 16 years ago. And so I still have a bunch of these. This is one from the art from the cover of one of the first 3 books I published, Atlantis Adventure. And it's got the title on the back. It's got the old website that doesn't exist anymore. And then here's the other bookmark that is the logo of the company that I had made.
Those are really slick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I've got a bunch of these that I try to remember, like the winner tonight will get one of these bookmarks.
Nice.
In their book. I try to remember that when I do have a book giveaway, or, I've autographed a book for someone. And there are some Secret of the Amazon Queen ones, but I don't have them handy. But so I've done the bookmarks in the past. I really like the bookmarks because it's a way to get the graphics out there and promote, and it's useful. Everybody likes a bookmark.
Sure.
even though there's page numbers in books.
I'm usually reading 3 books at a time, so
Yeah, it's
I
just
need
easier to,
bookmarks.
yeah, to write, have something in there that won't damage the book.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
pens and thick objects will damage the book. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those that I don't break the spine
Oh, God, no. Yeah.
on a new book. When you get the used books, you can't help that sometimes, but my books, I try to keep the spines intact and pristine. So yeah, I'm going to be doing keychains. Somebody asked me about t-shirts, and I do have a logo t-shirt that I had made I think the second or third year I was in
I
business.
saw that. I'm envious.
Yeah, and well, I'll send you one. I'll dig one out. So yeah, I'm going to offer and again, here's the upside of the internet. Just like I kept my company alive with print on demand when everything was turning crappy otherwise, I'm going to be able to offer all this stuff. If you want it, you order it, they make it, and they send it to you. I don't have to invest in a bunch of things that will be sitting around.
Just drop ship.
Yeah, so I can offer you t-shirts like, the ones from my films. I can offer all the mugs, everything with the logo or with book cover art, the books that I've published. So I'm looking forward to it. I actually have a lot of fun with that stuff. That's part of my frustration that fiction has kind of taken a hit in our greater community, because I like focusing on the Lost Continent Library, the fun part of the publishing and promoting the fiction. I love the promotional stuff. I love doing the graphics. I've said before, last year when we talked, I would like to bring a version of the magazine back. It's an electronic magazine, something you download. But yeah,
I noticed there is one copy of your magazine on lulu.com that's free to download.
Phantom Stream. That was I did one issue of Phantom Stream, and it was people liked it. Brad Steiger contributed an article to it.
Oh, that's
really
cool.
Nice guy, very nice guy.
I would have loved to have gotten to have had Brad Steiger on the show. I mean, I grew up, reading his books.
Yeah, so he was one of those that his books were among those first that you read when you're really first learning about stuff, and he was real nice about it. He goes, oh yeah, I'll give you an article. So Phantom Stream is a free magazine if you want to see an example of what I was doing then. I mean, that was years ago. I will say that when I came out with Lost Continent Library magazine, I was told this by third parties, but it apparently took the e-magazine world by storm, because I was doing things that the other e-mags were not. My use of color and graphics, the fact that my magazine looked like something that was professionally printed. Now, I will admit, the first issue was okay, in my opinion. The second issue was a little better, but it was really that third issue that kicked off LCL magazine being what it was by reputation. And I credit that with my degree that you mentioned before in journalism was specifically magazine publishing and editorial, not newspaper, not broadcast. Magazine. I love the magazine format. And back in 2008, when I did the magazine, that was the first time I actually used my education directly.
Right. That must have felt good.
I think it shows. And the thing was, my sources were saying, it blew these guys away when they found out that you essentially do the whole thing by yourself. Like when you read articles and it's, Chip Stone and other names, that's all me.
Right.
Unless it's a name you recognize, like Bill Craig or Mike Mott. And Mike Mott was a tremendous, he would put all the elements together into the one PDF and we would distribute it on his page. It changed the way e-mags on that level were done. After that, you can see where more people were doing it like I was doing, with color, lots more color, and
Right.
making it look like a print magazine. And I got interviewed by a couple of other publications because of the relative success of that magazine, which again, I talked about last year on this show. So I want to bring a version of it back. It was a lot of work, but it was a labor of love, and people liked it. So I think I might give one issue a shot. And Phantom Stream was another one that I tried in another genre.
I wonder if you could convince Greg Bishop to let you republish The Excluded Middle.
Well, it's one of those. He publishes his own stuff now.
Are those still in print?
I don't know. But if he did those, he'd probably do those under his own label. And most of the time, because I don't officially accept submissions.
Right?
Yeah, you hear me talking about how I'm going to be publishing Joseph Farrell's first 3 books, and I'm bringing Sesh Hari back. I've been in a publisher, business relationship with Sesh for, like I said, 17 years.
Yeah.
And I'm very selective, because, to be honest, it's so easy now for people to start their own label and publish themselves. And I tell the artists, look, if you publish with me, I'm going to take anywhere from 30 to 50% of your royalties. And if you publish under your own label, you keep 100% of your royalties. And that usually makes a light go on. They're like, oh, and I tell people, I'll gladly show you the basics of where and how to do that. And, why not keep 100% of your royalties?
It's a teach a man to fish type of situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's a lot of work to publish authors. And my gosh, if I had a whole stable of authors, I'd be working 80 hours a week. And, to be honest,
and who wants all those conference calls and Zoom calls anyway?
Well, and you
got to focus on your books.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm curmudgeon and former military enough that there's some namby-pambyism that
don't fly.
Authors tend to display that, Walter Bosley don't have much patience for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to coddle any authors.
Well, good authors shouldn't need no coddling know-how.
Well, they should understand that, let's be honest here. We both know nobody in our community is a millionaire off of, the publishing.
Not unless you count Whitley Strieber's first book as part of our community.
He's in our community, but he was a real world big time
writer already
before he came into the community. Yeah, there are exceptions, but you know what I mean. Those of us who are like myself,
and I've spoken to him since, or chatted rather,
yeah,
and he has told me, at some point, the communion money ran out. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. I guess I should put a finer point on it. The small press guys that I know, like myself, no one's making millions in small press. And the reality of human nature is that if you and I are a couple of small press guys, and you say, "Hey, Walter, how's business going?" And if business is going good, human nature, I'm going to be more specific. I'm going to say, dang, man, I had a heck of a couple of months with such and such book. I mean, I made, X number of, but I'm a very honest guy. It's like, hey, I made, X number of thousand or whatever. But when business is, people tend to be vague. Oh, it's going great, going good.
You're going to be more circumspect.
Yeah. And that's how and it's the polite way, you just know. It's like, okay, we're all, in the same boat. But yeah, I think at least I tend to be a little more specific and honest. But then again, I'm honest with my taxes too. So maybe
there you go.
I learned from my dad, who was a small businessman, that, a lot of guys always saying, oh man, business, it sucks. And he says, They just don't want anyone to know how much they're making because, you know, they're gaming the taxes. But you know what I mean? It's people. Some people think that, a lot of people think that if you own a publishing company and you have these, oh, wow, you must be really rich. Why do you need to ask for donations to make a movie? And the fact is, no, I'm not rich. And also, as you know well, the real money is not in the book sales unless you have a Whitley, you know what I mean? But for small press, the real money is those media rights. That's
the option.
That's where your potential to make lots of money comes from, you know, is if somebody wants to make a movie or TV show out of something. That's
or streaming even.
Or whatever. Yeah. So
well, in that vein, I'll start with this. Walter, for writers that are interested in publishing on demand, what is your best advice?
Publish yourself. I'm not going to say don't publish others. What I'm going to say is, if you start your own label and you're going to publish yourself, don't think about publishing anyone else until you've done it a few years. Okay. Until you feel confident, and just be aware that, you know, when you do publish someone else, you know, you're going to have a contract, and, you know, you have to honor that contract, you know,
right.
And there's going to be this, that, and the other, you know, little things. So it's a lot easier if you publish your own things. Now, some people are going to say, oh, but isn't that like the old vanity press, which younger people won't know what that is. But no, it's not, because the old vanity press, as we know, were shady guys who would make you pay for the printing and distribution of your own book. Okay.
And even the review.
Yeah.
The blurb on the back.
And they didn't have a great reputation for that, but also because anybody with the money to see their book could get published. And there was a lot of god-awful stuff that the vanity press usually, you know, published. But these days, yes, I print and distribute, you know, digitally, print on demand, and then they take care of distribution for me, but they are not the publisher. I'm the publisher. I make all the editorial, you know, decisions, and nobody has ever paid me a dime to get their books published. It's a traditional classic relationship and contract where, you know, those who I have published, we have a contract, and I publish you, and you know, you get your royalties. And so it is completely different. But I would say definitely, if and most people ask this because they are going to write and they do intend to publish themselves, I would say stick with, I use Lulu, but my advice is I would not worry about trying to get on Amazon. And here's why. When you're a larger company, okay, you can absorb the hit you're going to take on the royalty, okay? You can absorb the various hits you're going to take, or losses, because, you know, people get excited about Kindle. Well, I learned the hard way. Amazon does not protect the Kindle file anymore, and they get hacked all the time, turned into PDFs, and they're put out there, and then you see your sales take a nosedive because people are out there looking for free books. They're always looking for a free deal, and they will take your book free.
Walter, don't you know that information wants to be free?
That's right, dude. It's information, man. It belongs to everybody.
Actually, the science fiction writer Cory Doctorow has a book called Why My Audiobooks Are Not Published Through Audible.
Oh.
But we'll get there here in a
good.
second.
Yeah, and I do want to hear that. And, you know, so I pulled I had one book a few years back that it had been out for 30 days, and after the second month, I noticed suddenly I wasn't making anything. And I thought, well, okay, slow month. And after about 3 months, I looked into it. I said, whoa, wait a minute. So I started doing the search, and sure enough, I found somebody had loaded it as a PDF on a very popular forum in our community. I contacted the guy who runs the forum, and to his credit, and he lives out of the country, to his credit, within 45 minutes, he responded. He had that book yanked off his forum. He profusely apologized. He told that guy, don't do that stuff.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say he just kicked him off.
Well, you know, he responded in a way that I appreciated, but I will tell you, it still screwed up my income and made life a little difficult for about 6 months. You know, after that. So the better part of a year.
Yeah, once it's out there, I mean, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
And when you're a small press guy, your newest book is the one that drives it drags all the other ones up to, you know, its level.
Sure.
So when you got a new book out, the sales of that and the interest in that kind of notch up the sales of the stuff you've already got there. So it really is important to, you know, your income and stuff. Yeah. And what happens is when that one goes off the deep end, the other ones aren't brought up. And like I said, I'm a one-man company, a micro press, and I'm, you know, I don't make a lot of money on this publishing. So, you know, something like that hurts. It really hurts. And these people who think it's okay to do, you know, let's just say I have an aggressively low opinion of them.
Yes.
And you know what? You'll be surprised if you get into this game. Here's the thing. You'll be surprised. Sometimes people that are claim to be big fans will do this to you. They'll not buy your book. They'll go download the PDF. God bless them. And, you know, they'll not admit it, but they'll do it.
Doesn't sound like a big fan to me.
Yeah. So I would avoid digital publishing entirely.
Yeah.
Never, ever. If you start getting out there and you're promoting your book this is an example, not for friends, not for relatives, and certainly not for hosts of podcasts or radio shows, when they ask, you know, number one, you should always want them to read your book before you're on the show. Otherwise it'll be a crappy interview.
Of course.
And number two, they're going to ask you to shoot me over a PDF. Before they finish that sentence, the answer should be no. I'll gladly send you a printed copy, and I'll wait. You know, we'll schedule after you get the book and read it. Here's why. The best of intentions, that PDF is going to get out there. And some people don't have the best of intentions. You know, they'll lie to you. Oh, well, no.
I mean, even if they have good intentions, what happens when they get hacked?
They get hacked or, you know, but what they do is, okay, I'm going to share this with you, but don't tell anybody. And then you get the idea.
Yeah.
So never, ever, ever, ever share.
Well, and, you know, me, you know, being a writer and, you know, I've been a ghostwriter. I've been a screenwriter. You know, I've been an editor, close to being a publisher myself. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, copywriter.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah, just every sort of writer that you can be, I've been, and I understand how that goes. And you know, I'm kind of old school, even though I'm just a Gen Xer, but I have always loved the smell of a new book.
Yeah,
and I can't stand the glare of reading something off of a screen, even if it's an iPad or a tablet, something like that. I've always preferred a book that I can, you know, put down, pick up, and I'll tell you, yesterday we had a wonderful show with Chris Gore and Jason Brock about Logan's Run.
Oh, great.
And I have never before, until the day before yesterday, read the book and then watched the movie in preparation for the show within, say, 10 hours of the show. So got through the whole book, which I wouldn't have done if it had been not printed matter,
Mm-hmm.
and then watched the film so that I, had
Sure.
thoughts fresh in my mind about it.
Right. Yeah. Right there.
And that's just kind of the way I've always been. Now, Walter, anyone that's read your books knows that even when you engage in speculation, you back it up with thorough research and that you footnote your books extensively.
Yeah.
Having said that, what evidence is there for a secret space program? And, in your opinion, how far along do you think it is?
My view of any kind of secret space program is something that's not as far along as other people have made claims. It's not like Starfleet. There's not these, there's not this massive fleet of numerous starship-sized craft. In my opinion, I look at it this way. The technology of the secret space program mostly paralleled what we were seeing NASA do, for example. It was just there, if you saw, if NASA had X number of rockets, X number of capsules, okay, and a space station, then the secret space program, okay, had X number of the same things. They were just using them for classified ops. Okay.
Do you think they were doing it any earlier with any better success?
Well, you have to remember,
or just sort of parallel.
Well, it was parallel for years, in my opinion, until I would say, if I had to pick a time where it moved a little significantly ahead, was, I would say, around 1980. But you got to remember, our manned space program started firmly in the military. It belonged to the U.S. Air Force, and it started in the late 40s, that development. And the Mercury program, okay, when you watch The Right Stuff, the movie, or the more recent TV series,
there's a Right Stuff TV series?
Yeah, on Disney. Check it out.
Wow.
It surprised me. And it's not G-rated. But anyway, that the capsule, the suits, that had already been basically designed and developed by the Air Force, the military, and it was handed, what they had up to that point was handed over to NASA in October of 1958, when NASA was founded and stood up. Okay. And then they took it from there. Now, there's no reason, knowing the way the military does things, particularly with classified technology, there's no reason whatsoever to assume that the Air Force stopped with its pursuit of manned space travel or its use of manned space travel.
Right.
People say, but Walter, one of the most popular ones was, people can monitor trajectory signals and blah, blah, or trajectory, I'm sorry, life support system, communications and telemetry and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, they've been working on signal jamming and signal camouflage a lot longer than people think. And I argue that it would have been easier than critic of what I'm saying thinks to mask, that life support telemetry signal. Also they'd say, well, we always know when they put people in space. And I throw this at you. Remember, I was an OSI agent. My boss was the OSI agent that was assigned to be the OSI agent involved with transporting payloads and other stuff that was going to be launched at Vandenberg. Okay. I had a proximity to this world that I'm speaking of. So keep that in mind when I say the person who says, well, my uncle was a security guy at Vandenberg, and he says, no way were there people. And I'm like, well, all due respect, but an Air Force security guard ain't going to know jack.
He's not read into that.
Yeah, he ain't read into the payload. And when you have a payload, a payload pod, let's say, that's already sealed and contained, and it just gets brought to where they loaded into the rocket. People don't know what or who is in all those rockets that have launched from Vandenberg. So they could have been launching personnel right under our noses. Oh yeah, there's another launch at Vandenberg. People say, well, we always know when something goes into space. And I say that's true, but you don't always know what's in that rocket.
Right.
And even orbital space stations. This was designed in the 50s by the military. Lunar bases, all this stuff. So basically, it's my opinion that with little bits of exception and maybe a little technological enhancement, there was a classified manned space program, in my opinion, run by our military that paralleled what the public knew about with NASA and such. And it's my opinion that, again, by the late 70s or 1980, the military one started moving ahead with its technology. Now, that said, again, we weren't having Star Trek type stuff in the 80s. We don't even have that now. Okay. No. I would say, and people often link this to the Gary McKinnon stuff, but I would say the most advanced, largest thing we might have would be similar to a submarine kind of situation. Now, submarines, they're big, but they're not roomy, right?
No, they're pretty cramped.
They're pretty cramped. And so, the Navy has been doing submarines for 100 years at least?
Oh, gosh. Right? I mean, back to the Civil War.
Well, yeah, that too. But the modern submarine, they've pretty much got that nailed down for the last 100 years. So, think about it. Who's good at training and operating crews in this self-contained tight quarters,
right?
In a hostile environment for weeks or months at a time? The U.S. Navy submariners. So it's my opinion that, the biggest ships would be no bigger than your average submarine, with a average submarine size crew on it, or less, depending upon the technology, because remember, you got to have the life support systems. But again, the Navy was doing that. The only difference is, either underwater or up in space.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest extent, in my opinion. Now, biggest, but I still think it's possible. Notice I said the word possible, please. Yeah. I still think it's very possible that we have indeed put boots on the ground on Mars at least once. I have a hard time completely dismissing the idea that a classified military program has not attempted to go to Mars in the last 60 years.
Especially since 1975.
Yeah, come on. Especially since 75. Definitely. Yeah, the odds are even higher. And what do I mean by that? No, I'm not. I mean, look at how cramped. When you go to the National Air and Space Museum here in the United States in Washington, and you see the inside of the Apollo capsule, and you look at how small that thing was that 3 men had to be in for, I mean, it would have driven me nuts.
Never mind the fact that they couldn't possibly get out backward with their breathing apparatus on.
Right. Yeah. It's that capsule that they rode in, to the moon. So the point is, let's say they sent a crew of 3 on this one-time mission to Mars. It wouldn't have to be this enormously sized thing. I mean, yes, it would be bigger than Apollo, but you never know. Might not be, I say not have been as if it happened. This is a possibility. It might not be, or would have to be, as big as people would think.
Especially if they had a refueling depot, in low Earth orbit, then they could, just use a regular old Saturn V and send it on its way.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, Walter, have you seen the Apple TV series For All Mankind?
Mm-mm.
I think you'll like it.
I'll binge it.
I think you'll like it. It's just finished its 4th season, so that's a lot of episodes. They're doing the I think somebody in the chat will catch me if I'm wrong, but I think that they're 26 episodes seasons.
Well, I've done I've done the first 5 seasons of Supernatural in less than 30 days. The last.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, yeah, when I binge, I'm a
You
serious.
really binge.
Yeah, I had never watched Game of Thrones. They were coming out with that final season, so I binged all the previous seasons in about 45 days.
Wow.
You know, that was. Hey, when you're a Dark Shadows fan, there's 1,200 episodes of that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Original
So-
series, folks.
Last week we had Micah Hanks on, and he
Uh-huh.
mentioned that the first time that he was on Into the Fringe, he was
Mhm.
on for either the first half or the other, and then you were on the other half, and that
Yeah.
he'd like to do that again. Who else is out there that you'd like to be on Into the Fringe with?
Joshua
Josh
Cutchin.
Cutchin?
Yeah. Joshua Cutchin, Joseph Farrell, hey, Sesheri. Yeah, I have an interest in having these guys on, but that's only half of me. The other half of me is I think your listeners obviously know Joseph Farrell. I think you'd find Sesheri fascinating. Yeah, let's see. Oh, Aaron Goulias, definitely. And gosh.
We might have
Bishop-
to do one with Albert Rosales pretty
That,
soon.
oh, well, yeah. Bishop James Long. He's an interesting guy. He's an exorcist. He's a bishop of the American Old Catholic Church, one of those independent Catholic churches over here. He has been a paranormal investigator for years and became a priest, earned consecration as a bishop, and has been an exorcist.
Interesting.
And, yeah, interesting, very interesting guy. You know, so those are just a few.
I know you've had to park your work on model building to work on your film. What's next when you get a chance to get back to it?
Well, I haven't entirely parked it because it's an addiction.
Oh, okay.
Just last night, I was working on the Invader saucer that Nick N, one of my YouTube live chat folks, sent to me. And I will be, I'm glad you asked, because I will be laying down the primer coat on Robbie the Robot.
Oh, cool.
Later this week.
Nice.
And so once I get that laid down and it's good and dry, I will be going into Robbie the Robot. But in September, I absolutely have to begin The Bride of Frankenstein, because I would like to have that, you know, me doing that during the Halloween season, and, you know, kind of maybe be finishing it by Halloween. But
That'd be fun.
working on it. Yeah. For me, the Halloween season starts September 1st.
Yeah. I'm a big Halloween guy. I've been doing Halloween displays for trick-or-treaters and parties since 1983.
Let me show you the one that I finished most recently, though.
Sure.
Let me grab it. Bumping into things, of course. This is a 1/48 scale Sopwith camel.
Nice.
I love building airplanes in 1/48 scale because I like things to, I mean, the little ones, don't get me wrong, 1/32nd, 1/35th, 1/72nd. What I've liked is the 1/72nd scale ones that I have usually chose to build are bigger than most. They just seem bigger than the average really small model. But my preference is for aircraft 1/48. You know, I mean, that thing's got a wingspan as long as my forearm there. But I painted it in my own color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be, as soon as I do some scenic photographs with it, with a cool backdrop and stuff, it will then be hanging like I have 3 others hanging above me now. And this will join them in the skies of my room.
People are commenting, Snoopy's plane.
The Sopwith Camel is indeed Snoopy's plane. And of course, Roy Brown, the Canadian pilot who was credited with shooting down the Red Baron, flew a Sopwith Camel. Very popular airplane for a good reason. And you know what's interesting? One of the things that made this airplane effective was that the airplanes of the day, this plane could do a simple maneuver that the other ones couldn't. And that was simply this.
Right.
The right banking turn, the Sopwith Camel was able to do it like instantly, just boom, go into a nosedive. And so it made it superior in maneuvering and stuff. And you can see the wings look a little bowed there. That's,
yeah.
These models aren't,
indestructible or anything.
Yeah, well, they're not. That's the thing about model building. I mean, the Japanese company Tamiya, they are legendary for making the best fit, as we call it, on a model, where everything, I'm gonna be adjusting the inner struts on that to bring that down. But that's the challenge of the model building, is when things aren't a perfect fit, you figure out how to make them look right. You either use the putty or you refit things and stuff. But that was the most recent one I finished. And I'm working. I did a little bit on the Invaders Flying Saucer last night, and on another ship model. I did a little bit on the deck. You can never stay away from it completely. But Robbie the Robot is next. I think I showed you that I had painted Altera, and so I start on the actual robot this week, probably tomorrow or the next.
So, how is the Napoleon research for the follow-up to the Esoteric Napoleon coming along?
It's going at the speed that I expect that a book like that goes, which is to say, it's going slowly but surely. And the particular thing that I'm researching is really fascinating, and might answer one of the big questions of the first book. And so I'm very excited about what I'm working on. And I was turned on to this lead by Laura London, or AKA Jungian Laura, who I've had on my channel. She's a Jungian scholar, has her own podcast, speaking of Jung. And she's the one that told me about this particular thing. And when the light went on, I was like, oh my gosh, and so I'm in the middle of pulling that thread. If I were to project, I would love for the book to be ready around the time that Ridley Scott's new Napoleon film starring Joaquin Phoenix comes out.
Oh, I've never even heard of that.
Oh, yeah. And what's exciting about this is there hasn't really been a big Napoleon film made in decades. And remember, Stanley Kubrick very famously was going to make a Napoleon film after Clockwork Orange. Anyway, he ended up making Barry Lyndon instead because of the other Waterloo films that had been made, Napoleon films, So, but I would have loved to have seen. I would love to see the script on that. Kubrick's Napoleon. Wow. I'm hoping that Ridley Scott does not treat the audience to just the typical British history propaganda nonsense.
Right.
I trust that Ridley Scott is a savvy enough guy that he's fully aware, and I'm hoping what inspired him to do it is the research of the last 20 years, and particularly that of Andrew Roberts, who puts the new spin on the truth about Napoleon Bonaparte. I still have idiots who come at me with, they list the number of Russian dead during the Moscow campaign, and of course they neglect, to point out that not all of that was at the hand or under the decision of, Napoleon. They neglect to I guess they don't know it, but the Russians burned Moscow themselves. Napoleon
scorched earth.
Yeah, they were like, oh, if you come in here, you'll get nothing but, well, okay. Napoleon himself would not have destroyed Moscow.
Yeah.
See, so that was just what I mean, so I'm hoping that Ridley Scott is going to present to the audience the more truthful, balanced view of Napoleon Bonaparte. Because if it's just...
I will quote someone without mentioning their name.
Okay.
Hope is not a strategy. And I say that because in the past, Ridley Scott has not been very good to his own IPs.
You mean as far as like historical accuracy?
Like the Alien franchise, for example. He totally screwed the pooch with Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and he actually saved Alien from being a B movie by sticking up for it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you've heard of this story that was trending on Twitter the day before yesterday. The mysterious vanishing and reappearance of William Hughes, the captain with top secret clearance, vanished into thin air. Quote, "It's not clear what a man who called himself Barry O'Byrne was doing on the morning of June 6, 2018, when, after 35 years, Air Force special agents knocked on his door in Daly City and arrested him for desertion. According to SF Gate, quote, "The jigsaw puzzle of William Howard Hughes Jr.'s life has many missing pieces. After disappearing into thin air in 1983, when he was wanted across the globe by numerous agencies from the Air Force to the FBI to Interpol. At one point, it was thought that he even defected to the Russians. Some suggested he sabotaged the disastrous Challenger space shuttle launch. Even after his recent capture, much of this unlikely story remains a mystery for the ages," close quote.
This is the first I'm hearing of this. Off the top of my head, my question is, how long ago was he found and arrested?
2018, June 6th.
Okay. What's happened with his case since then? Does anyone know in the public?
That's when he was arrested, June 6th of 2018.
Right. But has there been any word since then?
Presumably,
that you're aware of?
I mean, no, but I'm presuming that they're, going to be, pressing charges or charging him with something.
It's been 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't... by now, charges would have been pressed, and there should have been a trial, there should have
This
been...
is all over Twitter the day before yesterday, so I was just curious if you'd heard about it.
I hadn't heard about that. Off the top of my head, with my background, because with what I did for OSI, my second assignment, in particular, he disappears, what is it, almost 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, they find him living in Daly City. Does it say if he was married? My question is, okay, is he married?
I believe he was, yeah.
Married, have kids and stuff. See, what goes through my mind is...
And they were, I do remember reading that they were charging him with desertion, or they'd already long ago charged him with desertion.
Well, if he truly deserted, he wasn't living right there in or near the Beltway all those years.
Mm-hmm.
However, if he was living possibly under another identity, if what he had done, what he was accused of doing 30-some years ago, was actually cover for operational activity, And I wonder, okay, could he have been working as a double agent? The whole espionage, the desertion and the espionage, potential espionage, the so-called defection. Was this just part of the cover for a guy that was a DA for us?
Mm-hmm.
Or did he need to go deep undercover? Did he? What was his role in something? The reason why that story was put out, and then he did go underground, so to speak, allegedly deserted. People say, "Oh, Bosley, come on!" I used to do that work. I worked in that world. Okay,
right.
There'd be nothing unrealistic about that at all. He and his wife could have been knocks in a foreign country, a non-official cover, undercover agent.
Like
if you've seen
the spy series, who came in from the cold type.
Yeah, or if you've seen an excellent series that was on Fox called The Americans.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh my God. When I first started, we could talk for an hour on that, because as a former FBI guy who was in counterintelligence operationally, I learned from the first season on, I realized the guy who created this show, the showrunner and the scriptwriter, somebody related with this show knows something about, or knows somebody who was active in counterintelligence in the 80s. Because there were things in that show that blew my mind that they were in that show. And so I, in particular, enjoyed it. But they were like they were the KGB version of the knock. Okay. Mm-hmm. And believe me, they've got them here. We've got them all over the world.
Oh, sure.
People that are living as citizens of other countries. And in some cases, allegedly, natural born citizens speaking the language. Everything you see in The Americans is a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. It depicts real stuff. So this guy and his wife could have been knocks somewhere else. And for some reason, they've resurfaced him. Now, it could be that it's been that many years. He's older. I don't know how old the guy is now, but maybe he's retiring. And, if he's retiring and then is going to live the rest of his life in his, let's say his wife and he were knocks, and they want to live the rest of their lives under their true identities, it's time to bring him out. And, he's arrested. He's going to be charged.
Right.
And then it goes away. You never hear anything about it. And, maybe 10 years from now, he or one of his kids writes a book about it, or the whatever. These are potentially possible scenarios. It's really interesting. I'm going to take a closer look at it. Look, it could also be true that he was just a deserter and a traitorous rat, and for whatever reason returned to the area where he gets caught. It could be what it is on the surface. I totally admit that. But these are the other possibilities. Someone like me would think all these things that I've brought up.
Well, that's why I asked you. I thought that you'd be either you'd know about it or you'd be interested.
Now, was this UFO Twitter or just Twitter?
No, just Twitter.
Okay.
It was trending, and I looked it up, and I thought you'd be intrigued if you didn't already know the
Interesting
answer.
About sabotage of Challenger, because for several years I've been in that school of thought. I wondered if Challenger was sabotaged. I mean, I've written about that. In Empire of the Wheel 3, I talk about how the same, top hand that I think orchestrated 9/11 could very well have been the same top hand that could have orchestrated the sabotage of the Challenger disaster.
Sure.
And I go into the why of that in the book, Empire of the Wheel 3, and Origin. Actually, Origin, I go into it, even more specifically. So that intrigues me as to why that suspicion was attached to this guy. And so I want to read more about this.
Cool. I know that you've been along for David Hatcher Childress's tours and voyages. First, can you tell us about any memorable ones? And will there be an Empire of the Wheel tour that you will set up at some point?
Well, I've been doing Empire of the Wheel tours for almost ever since I wrote the book. I traveled with David Childress back in the early 2000s. I went on 2 of his central ancient Mayan cities and ruins of central Mexico tours in the same year. I enjoyed it so much. I think I went in February of '02, and then in November of '02, I did it again because he changes it up a little bit.
And were you working with him at that point?
No, I was just I was working in counterterrorism then, and I had been reading his books for not quite 10 years at that point. And that's how I met him, was going on the first Mexico trip. And then the following year, I did the South America tour that he does. Even to this day, he does this. And that was really memorable. When we went to Lake Titicaca, it was just beautiful weather. Clear blue skies, not a wisp of a cloud anywhere all day. We went to the Island of the Sun and the Island of the Moon and the ruins there, and it was fantastic. And we were on this, tourist kind of boat, just kind of putt-putting along. And we got about halfway on our journey back across the lake when suddenly, it's like the beginning, if you recall the old show HR Puff and stuff, when the storm rolls in. I'm not kidding you. Suddenly, the dark clouds roll in, and we're in the middle, and it was getting close to the late afternoon when the sunset, and when the clouds rolled in, it got night really fast, and one of the worst storms I've ever been in my life hit us. We're on this tourist boat. Now get this. This tourist boat had no running lights. It did not have a compass. It did not have a radio. It had only enough life jackets for about a third of the people who were on board.
Sounds like the Titanic.
And by the way, we found out that the reason it putted along was it didn't have a boat. It didn't have boat motors in it anymore. It had VW Beetle motors. And they had rigged it, and so we're talking about lightning crashing all around above us. We're talking about just heavy rain, and it made the trip even longer. We're out there, David, myself, and a bunch of the guys. We're out there on the outside deck, just laughing it up. Oh, we're all gonna die, And the lightning strikes really big and really close, so we all kind of go, well, let's go back inside. So
yeah,
we're in there, and it was an incredible experience. And I'm a terrible swimmer. I would have died if that boat had gone down. Okay, flat out, I would have drowned to death. But hey, it was very memorable. And I had one of those hikers spelunker, lights that you wear on your head, the strap. And it was LED.
I was thinking, horn? What is he doing?
No, a light. And I loaned it to one of the crewmen who went out on the bow there, the bowsprit, and used that as the tiny little light to try to, signal someone at the lighthouse, which we eventually were able to see. Now, we got back to the town that we had embarked from probably about 3 hours late. And all the people in the little town there were like on the dock, just wide-eyed waiting for us. They thought that the boat had gone down. They thought it had sunk because there was no communicating with the boat. It had no running lights, so there was no sighting it, and it was just in this terrible just storm on Lake Titicaca. And it was memorable. That was pretty cool. I wouldn't trade that experience, for anything. So that was the big adventure on a fantastic trip in general. So
very cool. Here at the University of Kansas, there's a charity that's called Audio Reader that people test and sign up to read periodicals, newspapers, and books for the blind and visually impaired, for which they lend out their own special radios and
Yeah.
broadcast on a special frequency just to
Right.
those radios. I took the test, passed, and was put on a waiting list, and that was probably 10 years ago. Would you consider reading your own audiobooks or selecting someone to read them if you had the DRM in place that you considered secure enough?
Only if I could be guaranteed that nobody could be recording it while I was doing that. I would have to be guaranteed that, though, because
Right.
I just that's how rampant this is. This IP theft, and again, that's how critical it is for a small press guy like me. Is I would be very, if I did it, I would do it with any of my novels, fine, no worries. I would probably do it with less guarantee on the Disneyland book, because that's kind of been out there. But I would be reticent to do it with any of the other books, because it would affect my business that much. So it sounds like a cool idea, though.
Yeah.
I got to grab something over here. I was reaching for something to see what time it was, and I knocked my Sopwith Camel over,
Uh-oh.
and nothing broke off.
Hey, that's a good deal.
Pretty good, Walter. Okay. Wow. Very fortunate. Anyway, sorry about that interruption there, but
Not at all. Not at all.
there we go. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. All the struts are good. So
Philip
but
Blair
that
says,
sounds really
we're going to need a bigger boat.
It was, I'm not kidding. Oh, and by the way, I had videotape this tells you how long ago it was, but it was one of those nice Sony digital, but still recorded on tape. Remember those? They were really nice in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I had recorded throughout this whole 3 weeks in South America, Peru and Bolivia. And on during the last week, my camera was stolen. So a buddy of mine who had recorded on his camera sent me, this is years ago, he sent me a VHS tape of highlights of the trip. And a friend is transferring that to digital for me.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, I had this boat trip documented, and there's footage of that boat trip, the storm on the boat, on this video. And so I'm
well, that'll send chills up your spine, I'm sure.
it was just really that. And I recommend to anybody who's interested in traveling to these places, go with David Childress, because he's a very down-to-earth, friendly guy. When you go on a trip with David, there's none of this. I mean, you're with David all day, and you'll hang out with him in the evening and stuff. And he's a very, some of these trips, you see the famous guide host, while you're on the tour and he's speaking, but then, they don't have dinner with you. They don't want to see you, except.
Yeah, they're shacked up in some nice hotel somewhere.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. The accommodations on David's trips are nice. I mean, they're good. And you don't have to be, in Himalaya or, Mount Everest climbing condition to go on his trips. There are nice conveyances to take you from the hotel to the sites, and it's really, if you're into that stuff and you like David and what he does, you read his books, I can't recommend those trips enough. That's one thing I miss. I haven't traveled in years, and it's one of my favorite things in life to do, and I hope to do it again. And those were 3 of the best trips I've ever been on. And I've seen a good chunk of the world, so.
We have a question from the chat. Brenda Giger, I'm going to guess, I'm murdering her last name, says, I'm a newbie, so maybe everyone knows this, but Walter's t-shirt is cool. Should I know what it represents, if anything?
Yes. This is a screen, they call them screen captures. Old guys like us call them stills, right? Production stills. This is an actual
store. Yeah.
this is an actual still / screen capture of a scene from my film, an image from my movie Hell's Bells, my first silent film, which you can see for free at the Walter Bosley channel on YouTube. And I made this in 2012. It's about 30 minutes or so, a little over 30 minutes, I think. And it is a psychological horror film, I like to describe it. But it's a silent film, black and white, kind of an homage to it. You know, kind of, it's shot like it was made in the late 1920s. And these two characters, they are, I don't want to give too much away, but they represent a theme that's running through the film. I don't want to say too much because the fun is seeing if you catch all the metaphorical stuff going on in the film. And there is a discussion between myself and Laura London, also known as Jungian Laura, but I would recommend watch the film first, then listen to the discussion, because the discussion will give some things away that, you know, I'd rather you experience the film first. But I did this in 2012. I rented a theater in Redlands to screen it in a theater, and that was at the Fox Theater in Redlands, which, by the way, was built and opened in 1925 during the silent era. And so it was a lot of fun to screen a silent, you know, homage in a movie theater, you know, that had been a silent era movie theater. And I had gone to that theater, you know, in high school and after. And it really made me want to do another silent film, which is why I'm doing one now, a new silent film that I'm working on, the Kaleidoscope Grimoire. But this is a shot from an iconic shot, which is why I've got it on the t-shirt. It's really the most iconic shot in the film Hell's Bells.
Yeah, I've got one in my closet for sure.
And you can get this at oh boy, I post the link at various times in the community tab
on your channel
of Walter Bosley channel, and I'll repost it. If you scroll down, you'll find it, but I'll repost it because people can get this shirt. And
I did post a link before you joined the stream, but it's just as easy for people to go to YouTube and just search on the Walter Bosley channel.
Yeah, if you go to the Walter Bosley channel, go up to the top where it says community, you know, the tabs there, click on that, scroll down, because you know what, there's other things you're going to like to see in the community thing, but go down that community thread. As soon as I think about it, I'll go in there tonight and repost the thread to bring it higher.
Now, Walter, Brenda's kind of spilled the beans here. I'm in the film biz and love hearing about this.
Cool.
So
excellent. Thank you, Brenda. I'm telling you, cinema, I've loved cinema since I was a kid. It was the first thing I wanted to do, you know, was be a movie director. And my uncle and mentor got a hold of me, and that's how I kind of took that detour into national security. You know, I'm also, you know, a patriotic American, and I kind of dug what he was just, you know, telling me, hey, you could get into the intel community. Oh, that's pretty cool. So believe me, I loved every minute of that. Mm-hmm. I love, you know, and I'm a natural investigator, but how's
the new film coming to the degree that you can talk about it?
Yeah, you know, I've never lost that love of cinema though. So the new film, I finished the first phase of principal photography, and that was, I shot all the stuff that was the live supporting actors on the full-size sets. Mm-hmm. I finished all those scenes. Now these shots, the segments of these scenes will be intercut with the main character who's going to be animated. And so they'll interact. The live actor will interact with the animated character, not on screen at the same time. Well, I might try to there's a couple of shots I might try where they're both in the shot at the same time. But so I'm moving on next to the longest part of the principal photography, and that's going to be doing all the stop motion of the rest of the film. And then when I'm done with that phase next spring, sometime between now and next spring, I will do all the stuff with the actor who plays the main character when the character's not animated, which is just in the beginning and the very end of the film. But those scenes are on location. So what I just finished filming was on sets, and I built a little home studio. I made this, like, I call it a box, but it was a wood frame. I built this little frame box, going back to my theater craft knowledge. And I was able to, hang the walls on that frame, and I had the movable stuff across the top to hang my lighting however I wanted it. And I built and filmed on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 sets. Just in that little, and this was in my home. I commandeered a family room area of the home, but that's been deconstructed. And I'm going to be moving on to the animation part. And I have a big, important prop that I have packaged. Well, I've prepared it to be packaged because I'm going to send it to you, Cardinal Sin. And it's autographed.
Aw.
It's a
Shucks.
big prop that you'll get to see in the teaser. I'm a little later than I intended to be on getting the teaser put together, but I am going to put a little teaser together of the stuff I've shot already. And I'm in the film. The last scene that I shot was the scene with the character I play. That's why
why your hair is like that?
It's why I shaved my head.
Yeah.
It's coming back.
One thing I wanted to ask you before the mods drop the link for people to participate in the giveaway. Over your last few appearances, we've kind of been dancing around the Superstition Mountain 33rd parallel thing. Is there anything you'd like to talk about regarding that?
Oh boy, there's always so much about that. If you've heard me talk about the maps that Seshari did for me many years ago now, that have the telluric current flowing, Arizona is really interesting because one of the biggest intersections of telluric currents is at South Mountain. And of course, all these lines come running through the whole state. And the Superstition Mountains, they don't escape that energy. So that's always interested me. I haven't done a deep dive into that. Now, years ago, of course, I've read, I think there's one book I have on my shelf about the Superstition Mountains, probably the one you and everyone else has read. But I definitely think that the whole 33rd degree, as far as that energy grid, the telluric power and all that, I think that definitely has contributed to the strange things associated with Superstition Mountains. And by the way, I'm in the very early stages of putting together an event next year that's going to be called Portal 33. And it's going to be an event focusing on this very stuff plus other things in the paranormal and alternative. And I'll be talking about that more in the coming months. I'm not the head guy. I'm working with the head guy. And it's going to be something you'll learn about in the coming weeks and months. And it's going to be really interesting, but it's called Portal 33.
Very good, very good. I've got a question for you that I've honestly never asked you. What have you never done that you've always wanted to do, either personally or in your professional life?
In my professional life, I would have loved to be a DA, double agent. I ran double agents, but I always thought, hey, if they ever wanted me to actually do this, I would have done it myself. I would have liked to have been a knock, one of those non-official cover, living in another country under a, cover identity, and space operations. Had I been in at the right time, Air Force OSI is the official investigative agency for Space Force. I'm so envious of those young agents that are, already being brought into the Space Force fold as an OSI agent. Being an OSI agent in space ops, oh wow, that would be something else. But that's that career wise. Outside of that, I always want to do more travel. There's always some places, I want to go see the places I haven't seen yet, both famous and some that aren't particularly popular or known or famous, but I want to do more travel. I like going to places I haven't been to yet. So that's always at the top of the list. I would love to have the opportunity to direct, a movie with a, what I call a real budget, and a real type of production. I'll be glad if something I've written is done on that level, because as you and I both know, that's a privilege to be able to direct a big motion picture.
Oh yeah.
Speaking as a lover of cinematic arts, speaking, just superficially, it is a privilege to be able to do something like that, So, yeah, I would love to do that. So, and as a guy who investigates the weird things I do, stepping through, time travel's at the top of the list. Okay. Stepping through a portal into another dimension, I'd do it. My kid, grown up, the adult, they, I'm not needed in that sense. I'm not married. Portal opened up, another dimension, I'm going. Truth be told, I would have gone anyway. But
if they asked you to go to Mars and you knew it was a one-way trip, but there'd be a hab and you'd be one of the original pioneers and all that kind of thing, you'd go?
Hell yes. Hell yes. Now people say, "Oh, how could you leave your life?" You know what? I'd be leaving a legacy. My son would think that's totally cool. My son would slap me upside the head if I said no. And he'd have something to tell, one of these days when he has kids, hey, what happened to Grandpa? Well, he went to Mars, and it was a one-way thing, but he went to Mars,
and hopefully he's still, talking to us on the radio today.
Yeah. Or, when the day comes that I, would die, it's like, because the way I look at it is I've taken my family ancestral tradition that much farther, right? My parents brought, their that ancestral line. They did their part to bring it from the east, from West Virginia and Alabama, to put down roots in California. My sisters were born here, and they were born here in the Inland Empire. I was born in San Diego, so that they brought those roots, the line west, and I've done the world travel I've done, which others in my family have never done and stuff. And that kind of thing to me is important. So yeah, if I was asked, I'd, heck yeah.
Let me try and get this across without spoiling it for you. I think you'll really really enjoy the series on Apple TV For All Mankind.
Okay.
If
I will
that's
check it
not
out.
giving too much away.
I
Now
will
let me
check.
ask you this.
Uh-huh.
What is the core, and remember, we're kind of in rapid fire mode.
Yes.
What is the core of the Bierce Mitch's Hedges Crystal Skull mystery?
That Ambrose Bierce and F. Mitchell Hedges were each respectively agents for intelligence agents for their countries. Bierce, the United States, Mitchell Hedges for England, and that due to what was going on in the years leading up to World War I, they were working on intel collections for their respective countries because the German intelligence agencies were working heavily in Mexico. At the time they would have come together in 1913 or after, and that had everything to do with oil resources for the impending war, World War I. And basically at the core of that hypothesis is that Bierce and Mitchell Hedges were involved with the finding and the obtaining of the legendary Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, and that the story that he and subsequently his daughter, Anna Mitchell Hedges, told for years was not true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really in a nutshell. And I do suspect that Bierce was an agent. Wouldn't surprise me if Mitchell Hedges was an agent. And I agree that the story that Anna Mitchell Hedges told for years about how they found the skull is not true.
Yeah. Now, you've said before that maybe 10% of the best cases might fit the ETH. What are some high-profile, let's call them UFO cases, that you'd like to let people know are total bullshit?
Oh,
and
easier.
Which researchers?
Okay. First, let me put a finer point on that. I think that the ET hypothesis explains a portion of cases within the 10% that can't be explained by human technology.
The unknowns.
So that means, that means even less than 10% of worthy UFO reports.
Right.
Even less would be ET. But remember, It only takes one to prove it, right?
Sure.
Look, this is my opinion based on years of looking at this, based on research, and also studying the research of others, their fine investigations. Roswell was not an ET event. Sorry, folks. I'm pissing someone off out there right now as I say that. Rendlesham Forest, that's not an ET event.
PSYOP.
PSYOP. I don't care what has been claimed since then. Sorry. Mm-hmm. It's dubious. Okay. I don't think that, and I think Whitley Strieber has said this himself, but I don't think he was having an experience with ETs. I think that was something else.
Well, he did call them visitors.
Yeah.
And since then he has gone on to talk about that he believes that experience has something to do with our dead, and of course his wife Anne famously worked on that.
I'm personally very intrigued with this whole connection of the dead and
me too.
UFO encounters, and I think Josh Cutchin gets into that a little bit, and it's a fascinating topic. I also I don't think Gulf Breeze was legitimate. Mm-hmm. The Bob Lazar thing I think is a load of BS.
Total bovine scatology.
And most of the things that all of the things really that Corbell's been pushing are just dubious and not what he is trying to push. Tic Tac was not ET. Tic Tac was our technology. Again, sorry folks, I know I'm pissing off some fanatics there.
St. Lou Elizondo.
Yeah, that's talk about perception management. That's what that whole thing was about since 2017 with those guys. Those are just It's looking, and it also looks like Betty and Barney Hill did not have an ET encounter, that there was
Mm-hmm.
something else going on there. And I know people are saying, but Walter, or how dare you? Folks, I'm sorry. You gotta, sometimes you gotta be big boys and big girls and be adults and look at these things and look closer and be more objective. And you'll find that, unfortunately, ufology is full of a lot of popular
Hucksters.
myth and lore,
Mm-hmm.
and hucksters take wild advantage of that, and
Yeah.
have for years. And the purveyors of ET merchandising, they are not going to give up their thing, their cash cow. And and that's really a lot what goes on, as far as stubbornly clinging to that, and with all these cases, and keep desperately wanting to keep that in the center spotlight of what the UFO phenomenon is about.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned to you on the show previously that when I was at the Bay Area UFO Expo years and years ago, that Sean David Morton had, as he typically did, stolen somebody's audience and was out in the hall with this circle of people around him.
Yeah.
And he had a cameraman that was shooting him, and I made sure to stay on the opposite side of the circle as the cameraman, and every time he moved to get me out of the shot, I would walk back into the shot to ruin the shot.
Well, he did that same exact thing at the it was either the 2006 or 2007 UFO Congress in Laughlin, Nevada. He did the same thing to Richard Hoagland. Hoagland was in there speaking, and there's Morton outside, and the
Was this before or after he went to jail?
Oh, this was before. This was 06,
Okay.
07. And
that's right,
yeah.
about the time that I ruined the shot of the Bay
Oh,
Area.
there you go. So it was definitely his practice to do
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. I understand that you're not a big fan of the FBI these days, or federal agents in the last 20 years in general. How have things changed since you were, quote, a company man?
I have been, let me tell you, one of the finest organizations I ever worked for was the FBI when I was working for them. After about the time of 9/11, this was spoken about. I wouldn't call them whistleblowers, but there were some folks that I knew personally that spoke about this in some books and stuff. And around the time after 9/11 happened, the problem I have is some of the folks at headquarters and mid-level management in the field. It's not all the agents I have a problem with. It's those who appear to be incompetent, and those who are going along with things that, quite frankly, as federal agents, they should be refusing to do.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not in defense of the Constitution.
It's not in the spirit of the Constitution. I wonder, if it's in the letter of it. But the problems really started with 9/11. I learned this from inside sources, and it has, again, been talked about since then in a couple of publications. They started pushing aside experienced agents, counterterrorism agents and stuff, because they were hiring a bunch of new people, and they were pushing aside the experience. Well, one of the reasons you would do that is when you want agents who will just do without questioning. And think about it, a new young agent is they want to please the boss, right? And they're less experienced. They just think they're so enamored, and charmed by the idea that they got that federal badge that, hey, whatever. And then increasingly, you see where you get people who, when I was a federal agent, there were those guys who, and this bothered me, they fell in love with their authority. and you get this through somebody's humor. The things they would joke about is, the authority they had over the people. Hey, you don't mess with us. You get out of the way because we're the federal agents. And my view is, no, I work for the public. I know that sounds cheesy and everything, but I had a sign on my desk that, get this, now, according to the latest domestic terrorist list, that's disgusting, that the FBI, someone there, thank God they leaked. As a federal agent for the United States Air Force, I had a sign on my desk that reads, famous quote, "When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty." I had that on my desk as a federal agent. And that sentiment was shared by, the guys I worked with. Now, as a civilian, if I even, had that on my social media, I would be labeled a domestic terrorist. Let me tell you something, folks. They have gone wildly astray, and it started during the Bush era with that Patriot Act stuff, and that Joseph Farrell will love to hear this, that fascist creep, Dick Cheney's influence, and all his and all those neocons. Good thing that the daughter just got booted unceremoniously.
She lost her primary. Yeah.
Oh, big time. And what I've seen since then, under Bush, under W, it didn't get any better under Obama. And look at the kinds of things, they were doing, under Trump. It's just, as a former federal agent, it shouldn't matter what your politics are.
That totalitarian tiptoe.
It shouldn't matter what your politics are. When you've been in those ranks, it should disgust you that the FBI has become a Gestapo, a Stasi for a political culture, and that's the culture of Washington. Okay, presently controlled by Democrats, but under Bush, Cheney, it was controlled by the neocon Republicans. Okay, so I'm not talking necessarily Republican Democrat here. I'm talking about Washington and our political elite and our political class. The United States of America should never have had a political class. I mean, I get disgusted. I was at the grocery store today, and all these American magazines just gushing over, what's his name's wife, a queen in the making. There should be no American interested in that friggin' royal family in England or anywhere on the face of this planet.
To be honest, for me, it's not a matter of patriotism. It's just it bores me silly, the royals, all that stuff.
Of course it's boring, and I'm not talking about patriotism. I'm talking about the kind of nation and culture that we are and are supposed to be. We shook off and fought off, the chains of dynastic control and all that royalty stuff. And when I see Americans enamored with that stuff, I just shake my head. Well, this is what the political class sees themselves, and you don't have to be in one party to see this.
Sure.
And so when I see the FBI doing the kinds of things they're doing now, look, I have my sources that I talk to inside, and I promise you this: most of the agents, and what I mean by that is the majority in number of the agents, are just as disgusted with this as you and I. Trust me. Trust me. Okay. But the problem is there is a percentage of badge carrying federal agents in the FBI who, quite frankly, again, that word disgusting, they are violating the very spirit of the organization, the spirit of the Constitution, the spirit of, what that job is supposed to be about, because, they see themselves as favored. And, there should have been people turning in badges before being willing to comply with things that have been done over the last 20 some years.
Yeah.
Okay. Not just last weekend, not just the last few years, but over the last 20 years. I mean, the incompetence that emerged about the FBI lab in the early 2000s was embarrassing and disgusting, because the FBI lab was stellar. It was amazing reputation. And then there was, it just, And what it tells me is that there's people at headquarters and mid-level management that are driving this politically motivated train, and there are agents all too willing. They're careerists, is what they are. They're not
Right.
mission-oriented. They are careerists. And as a former federal agent, I say to them directly, "Damn you."
Yeah.
So.
To kind of wrap things up on a lighter note while we're waiting for the mods to bring in the wheel for the giveaway, which
Yeah.
Thank you again, by the way. This is
Oh, sure. Thank you. I love.
I guess you'll have to autograph the bookmark since it's Sesh's book, but let's talk Universal monsters and monster movies in general.
Yeah.
Do you think you have a top 10 list, or at least your 10 favorites in any particular order?
Of the classic Universal monsters, all those films, I have to say my favorite has been these last years, The Bride of Frankenstein, for reasons we've talked about.
Sure.
That is a layered, wonderful, just masterpiece.
And by the way, thank you for correcting me about Elsa Lanchester.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All these years I thought it was Lancaster.
Oh, Elsa Lanchester.
I have no idea where that came from. I guess I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. Well, the two names are so close, and Lancaster is the more common one. I would say after that, I always loved the Wolfman, the original Wolfman with Lon
Oh,
Chaney.
yeah.
I like the Mummy, the original
Mhm.
Karloff Mummy. I came to appreciate Dracula, Lugosi's Dracula, of course. I think I almost, as much, if not a little more sometimes, depends on the day you ask me, White Zombie is up there with Lugosi's Dracula for me. I'm not crazy about The Invisible Man. That one's never really grabbed me.
By the way, are you a fan at all of Frank Langella's Dracula?
Oh yeah, I saw that in the theaters, and absolutely one of the creepiest things, I'd ever seen in a movie was when Olivier, as Van Helsing, goes down underground into the crypt and encounters his daughter.
Yeah.
The red eyes, and she looks all that. Wow, that creeped me out when I was younger. That was excellent. Yeah. Oh yeah. I enjoy the. At the time, I thought the ending was a little, but as I got even more familiar with my favorite of the modern versions of that, of course, is Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. Even though Oldman owes his performance to Jonathan Frid and Barnabas Collins, that
Yes.
whole sympathetic vampire thing, really, Dracula is not supposed to be a sympathetic character.
No. And of course, pardoning Keanu Reeves' horrible British accent.
Yeah, he should have just stuck with his own, and that would have been fine. But even then, I don't hold that against the movie. It's a good movie.
Phantom Boomer says, Langella was my late wife's favorite Dracula. Too bad he got Me Too'd recently. I didn't realize he'd been Me Too'd.
I didn't know that either. Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
He was in The Americans.
Yes, he was. Oh,
And-
the first thing I ever saw him in high school, one of my teachers introduced me to The 12 Chairs, the Mel Brooks movie. Check it out. It's really good.
That is pretty cool. Andrea, of course, says, I like my vamps bloodthirsty and unrepentant.
There you go. See, I like the John Carpenter's vampires with James Wood, and I like when the vampires to me, Van Helsing is the hero of the story,
Sure.
not Dracula. But.
Yeah. And of course, the brides of Dracula are always, interesting.
Even in the Lugosi version, it's like, wow.
Yeah. But in the Hammer version, come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hammer, Coppola, The Brides. It's like, okay, I know, I'll be condemned, but boy, that would be fun.
What a way to go, right?
Yeah, one of them of course, the Coppola one, Monica Bellucci, that was one of her early roles.
Right.
One of
Yeah.
The Brides. But now I'm more like Van Helsing. That kind of beauty doesn't suck me in and hypnotize me like it used to when I was a younger man.
Sure. And I have to say, Nemesis of Eden has it right. 30 Days of Night has some wicked vampires, true monsters.
You know what? Confession time. That's on that list of movies that have been out there that I've never seen. So
oh my goodness.
I've got, my son has been saying that too. He goes, Dad,
No
you got to watch
shit.
30 Days of Night. So Nemesis, I will go look for that. That's why I started watching Supernatural finally recently. Someone told me it was on for 15 years and you never watched it. I'm like,
Yeah. And Jonocide says, best vampire film, Near Dark.
I got to watch that one again. It's been a while.
And The Ninth Gate is, as you know, my favorite horror movie, period.
Yes, great film. I love that movie. Frank Langella,
Yep. Can't go wrong. And while I am thinking of it, and we have 39 viewers, congratulations, Walter. You've topped yourself once again. I would like to introduce Mr. Canadian Spider-Man. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Walter.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back.
Oh, thanks. It's always great to be here.
Yeah. Is this a record, Cardinal Sin?
It is indeed.
I thought it was.
Is as high as we've gotten.
Are you in a cabin?
No, that's the firewood he's cut because he lives in Canada.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's cool. Look at all that.
Yeah. No, we need this for the winter. It's our only source of heat.
Coming up? Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He's got wood.
That's impressive.
If I'm not in Mexico.
Sorry, I had
expect to be in Mexico.
Oh, but there you go.
Yeah. And I've got some very cool looking t-shirts here too. Speaking of Halloween.
Does.
Oh, yeah. Cool. All right.
Like you said.
There you go. Scaring kids and adults. Scaring kids is wonderful. Don't you love it? I mean, my dad raised me and my sisters, mom and dad, taking us to the drive-in to see horror films, and I'm sure
we scared a kid so badly one year that he ran past his parents down the block.
That poor kid.
Did you get his candy at least? Did you score that?
I'm pretty sure he didn't get any, at least not from us. But
there's going to be someone out there heaping scorn upon us for that. But hey,
So Jill has the wheel ready.
Well, let's pull it up.
I can't take credit for that.
Let's pull it up, and thanks always to Jill for her hard work there. But we will go ahead, and as soon as you have that shared, we will give it a spin and give away Sesh Hari's book. And there we go. So thanks to everybody that participated, and let's go ahead and watch my head spin around and make me feel like I'm in The Exorcist.
Oh!
Wow.
Phantom Boomer.
Pulled it
Twice in 2 days.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Ari.
I did too.
Yeah, I was hoping for you, but no, Phantom Boomer. That's awesome. Fantastic.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay, I'll leave you, gentlemen, and
sure,
to carry on. But yeah, thank you very much for being here once again, Walters. You draw a crowd, so
I enjoy it.
You are a fan favorite, Walter.
Oh, thanks.
It's
you know what? I in this digital era, I will inform Sesh. I'll get his permission formally to do this, but I have documents with his signature on it, of course, because we have contracts for books. I'll ask him if I can put a digital somehow, using his digital signature, I'll get that in the book. And
Cool.
So it'll be kind of a signed copy. If I can make that happen, I will do that.
Awesome possum.
That's really generous. Your time is most generous too.
Oh,
It's the
hey,
most important thing you have.
Yeah, but this is one of those things where I'll gladly come here. I love talking with folks, about stuff, and it's all a pleasure. That it reminds you of that phrase people say, get a job you like, and it's never, you won't work a
It's
single
never
day.
work, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Same as working with Cardinal.
the only time I actually work hard is when I'm trying to load something into the Lulu printing program, and it's getting picky and testy, and I have to go back and readjust the size of the file. It's like, but once it's done, it's sublime. So the rest of it's fun, like this stuff.
I bet you we could draw a crowd for 12 hours if you joined Cardinal Sin and I on midnight to midnight sometime. That
You know
would
what?
be it.
Yeah, give me an advance, far enough advance, so I can plan that, and that would be cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah, we're going to have to do another midnight to midnight here pretty soon. I've kind of fallen down on the job because I've been so interested in some of these other shows that I've been setting up. Like the one we did yesterday, I'd been planning that for 3 months, and as you know, I'm always trying to find new, guests that I haven't had on, and combinations of guests that I haven't had on. So, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time, because we're at the end of our 2 hours, and I know that you have other stuff that you need to get on with.
Mm-hmm.
So I will go ahead and thank everybody in the chat for being here, and congratulations again to Phantom Boomer. That's
Yep.
twice in 2 days. We may have to put a moratorium on Phantom Boomer. But I do want to thank you again, Walter, for being here. It's always a pleasure, always a good time. And
enjoy coming.
next time you're on, hopefully my camera browser computer situation will be fixed. They're supposed to be coming tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get that taken care of. And to everybody that's still out there, again, thanks for being here. We do appreciate all the input and all the participation. And it's just, we couldn't do it without you. And, that's the reason that we do what we do, right?
Oh, one last thing.
Mm-hmm.
My books can only be found at lulu.com, print on demand. I'm not on Amazon.
Absolutely. And that information is up at the beginning of the chat.
Cool. Okay.
For folks that want to check it out. It's lulu.com. Just search on Walter Bosley, and you'll find what you're looking for. And until next time, it's Cardinal Sin out.